2025 Early Connections Conference, Expression, presented by the Van Sloan Foundation. Early Connections Conference logo, Emotional and Social Intelligence, the building blocks for connections.
Hey everyone, my name's Alessia. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to talk to you all. This is our Emotional and Social Intelligence, the building blocks for connections presentation.
And I'm Iris Leonardi. All right. I'm pressing the button. All right. So who am I? My name's Iris Leonardi. I'm a school psychologist in my 5th year of practice and my 4th year of working at the secondary school at Perkins School for the Blind. Prior to joining the Perkins team, I worked as a school psychologist and team chair for Cambridge Public Schools in their Special Start program. In their preschool program. There, I transitioned families from early intervention to special education services. And my training included time in the Boston Public School District and here at Perkins in the deafblind program.
Hello, my name's Alessia Guerrero Spies. I am a school psychologist in the secondary program here at Perkins on my 6th year of practice. Before I came to Perkins, I worked in Head Start, Jump Start, Early Head Start, and the early childhood labs at University of Connecticut. I have an undergraduate degree in human development, family studies, with a specialty in early education. And I also worked as a therapeutic mentor for Riverside Community Care.
Okay, so what are the goals of our presentation? We're hoping to define emotional intelligence, review developmental trajectories and emotional intelligence hierarchy, define social emotional learning, preview historical and current research on the benefits of social emotional learning and emotional intelligence, review the evidence-based social emotional learning practices and curriculum. It's important to note that information about third-party providers, products, and services does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Perkins School for the Blind. It is the user's responsibility to verify and investigate providers, products, and services. References to or information regarding commercial products, information, services, manufacturer, or companies do not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Perkins.
All right, so we are here to talk about emotional intelligence. What is it? Emotional intelligence is a way of understanding and handling feelings, both your own and other people's. For young children, it means knowing feelings, expressing feelings, managing feelings, understanding others, understanding causes and consequences of emotions, and empathy.
Why does emotional intelligence matter? So emotional intelligence is important because it helps us learn when it makes us feel good inside and get along with others. It breaks down into 5 areas of understanding feelings, being a good friend, being a good member of society, solving problems, and feeling safe and happy.
So as school psychologists, we feel strongly about emotional intelligence because there are many related outcomes. It's important to discuss what's associated with high EQ so we can help foster that. Emotional intelligence impacts attention and executive functions, cognitive flexibility, school engagement, positive relationships with peers and adults, behavioral regulation, more positive feelings, and in older children and adults, it relates to better grades and lower job-related stress and burnout.
Next, we're going to talk about the brain. On the screen, you can see a brain that develops from 35 days in utero through the adult stage. The basic architecture of the brain begins before birth. Early experiences affect the quality of this architecture by establishing either sturdy or a fragile foundation for learning, health, and behavior. In the first few years of life, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. After this period of rapid growth, connections are reduced through a process called pruning, so that brain function is able to become more efficient.
Genes and experience interact to shape the developing brain. A key element in this process is the serve and return relationship between children and their caregivers or parents. Toxic stress is incredibly harmful to the developing brain. Research shows that addressing toxic stress early on is crucial for achieving the best possible outcomes. For children facing toxic stress, Targeted early interventions are necessary to address the root causes and to protect them from harmful effects. The brain is most adaptable during the early life, allowing it to adjust to various environments and interactions. However, as the brain matures and takes on more complex functions, its ability to reorganize and adapt to new challenges diminishes.
So what is the serve and return relationship? The serve and return relationship essentially means the back and forth interactions between an infant and their caregiver. This looks like when caregivers are attentive and responsive to their child's needs and signals. There's lots of back and forth interactions, positive influences from the developmental environment, a stable and interactive environment, and an interactive caregiver. These connections are essential for development of future learning and cognitive development. The absence of these relationships can pose a significant threat to a child's development and well-being.
So the serve and return relationship has 5 steps. First, you notice the serve that the child gives, and then sharing the child's focus of attention. For example, the child makes a sound or movement or looks at something. That is a serve. The return of the serve would be supporting and encouraging that interaction. So you might offer a hug or a physical contact to serve to model the serve, provide words of comfort, make a sound or facial expression if vision is accessible. Then we want to name the serve. This helps to promote the language connections. For example, if the child touches a rug, we might label what it is and what it feels like. That is a rug. It is soft. Can you feel it? Then we take turns and wait. Children need time to form responses and to process. We also want to practice endings and beginnings. So we want to notice the child's signal of when to begin and when to end an activity.
Next, we're going to show a video called the still face experiment, which kind of shows you the difference between giving a serve and return relationship and when that is absent.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm my good girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
So the reason we showed that video is to show how stressed a child can get. And that leads us to what is toxic stress. So one type of toxic stress can be when an adult's responses to a child are inconsistent, harmful, or absent. This can be the persistent absence of the serve and return interactions. For example, when a child is reaching out to a caregiver and their initiation is ignored. What this does is deprive the brain of the positive stimulation it needs to develop neural connections and make meaning of their social environment. This can also activate the body's toxic stress response, which can flood the developing brain with harmful stress hormones. We know that not all stress can be eliminated, but it's important to be conscientious of its impacts.
Like we just mentioned, everyone experiences some level of toxic stress throughout their lives. However, this is amplified for those in the disability community. Specifically for the blind and visually impaired community, lack of visual access can cause a range of challenges. This includes, but is not limited to, sensory challenges like over or under stimulation, communication challenges, learning challenges, social challenges, and regulation challenges. Throughout early childhood and adolescence, many individuals learn through observing and watching. When this sensory channel is interrupted, it can lead to significant challenges in obtaining and understanding the information we get through other sensory channels. In turn, this can cause emotional distress and/or behavioral challenges.
So next, we're going to do an activity where we watch and listen to 2 different videos. One will be from the vantage point of a visually impaired person, and the other will be from the point of a sighted person. Please feel free to close your eyes for the first video. At the end of both videos, we will discuss how each video made us feel. We will also discuss the social cues observed in the second video that weren't as easily noticed in the first.
The first videotape clip will start out totally black.
So this is
and
Tom
move
Miller,
to
and he's
a
just
low
explaining
vision
that the
scenario.
first clip will be shown
It's a
as a
tape
blank
of students
screen.
in
That's
a
a
couple
little
of
bit
learning
blurry
environments within
at
a
the
second
end
grade
there.
classroom. What you want to do is listen to the tape, watch the tape, and try to jot down what social cues you're picking up from what you hear, what you see, or maybe what you don't see.
You're all set. You have 2. Okay? You're all set. Good one. Okay. I don't know. They're probably from the city, and they're probably want to see what a good library we have.
So with the audio a little louder, what you would have heard is the chatter of a classroom and what you hear when you're just in the special education or general education setting. You hear the sounds of the children around you, you hear what they're doing, what they're talking, and you hear the whole class.
The second video clip, which you'll see
So
now,
the second video
after
clip will
having
be very
observed or not
similar, but this
observed
time it's
social
from the
cues in
point of
last
view
one,
as a
is more
sighted person,
is
so
a
you'll
regular
be able to
clip or
see
the
what's
same
happening
clip, but
in the
clear
classroom.
vision. You'll see the whole scenario. You'll see students participating in the library. You'll see students having a snack together, students playing and interacting with one another. And what I want you to do is, as you look at this clip, is begin to now jot down the social cues that you can pick up within the environment. You'll probably find out that there are more cues than you can jot down. You'll probably find out that, and hopefully understand that, what happens socially, and many times again when we go into classrooms, you know, we say, oh, preschool is just about social skills. Well, as you watch these social skills in action, remember that those social skills are based upon cognitive learning, concept development, motor skills, the ability to move in the environment, to turn the pages of a book in this case, the ability to open up your own snack, visual cues, but also language. All right, all these factors go into social learning. Social learning is not an isolated event. Successful social learning is grounded in good developmental learning and task development.
You're all set. You have two. Okay? You're all set. Good one. Okay. I don't know. They're probably from the city, and they're probably want to see what a good library we have.
Okay, sorry for the audio issues. The first video actually might be a good representation of an individual who has a dual sensory loss of vision and hearing. So it can kind of give you a snapshot of all of that input that might be missing. So we'd like to open it up for discussion about what you might have noticed in the two different audio clips and how might that apply to the children that you work with.
Hello? I think very close to the start of the video, there was a little boy at a table with his hands on either side of his head, and it looked like he might have been in some distress or sad.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't have, he wasn't even making any noise, I don't think.
So cues from other peers in your classroom? Absolutely.
Second clip, you could see the two little girls talking about the ladybugs. So they were participating in like this joint attention activity where they could both kind of socialize and like talk to each other and have this back and forth while like communally participating and being able to see the same thing, where a kiddo who may have a lack of vision or hearing might not be able to like initiate or be initiated in those types of interactions. And then depending on the types of kiddos that they're around, they may not be able to participate in that the same way and learn through their peers the same way.
Absolutely. Well said. Anybody else? I think that was summarized really well. You can see all of that extra information that might be lost when you don't have access to see what's going around you. And that leads us to our next slide. Incidental learning. If you've heard of it, great. If you haven't, what it is and how it does impact individuals. Sorry, what is it and how does it impact individuals with visual impairments or blindness? Incidental learning refers to the unplanned or unintentional process of learning through observation and visual access throughout our days. Learning happens by watching and noticing. Individuals who are blind or visually impaired may not be able to engage in incidental learning process, or that system is interrupted. This is what makes explicit teaching so important for this population.
Due to the challenges related to incidental learning, explicit instruction is imperative to your child's learning process. Explicit instruction involves direct and structured instruction of concepts to help a child learn them. There's a 6-part process that you can do to ensure that explicit learning is taking place. So first, we want to identify the learning objectives. Think about what you want to teach and the objectives you want to achieve. Next, we want to scaffold information into chunks by breaking concepts down into their most basic form to help reduce the cognitive load. Next, we want to have clear expectations with modeling to clearly explain using language and dialogue and using modeling to set expectations. Next, we want to verbalize the thorough processes by modeling self-talk to help build the awareness of the child's learning process and support their understanding. Next, we want to provide opportunities for practice by allowing a child plenty of time for guided practice. Don't be afraid to directly engage with your child. And finally, we want to give feedback by providing both affirmative and constructive feedback. This can be done with questions to ensure the grasp of the concept.
So we're going to switch topics and we're going to talk about the hierarchy of development and how that impacts emotional intelligence. We're going to talk about how emotional intelligence develops throughout the years, and the following slides represent the typical trajectory of social emotional development throughout early childhood and childhood. While the timeline may vary child to child, the trajectory of development typically stays the same, but occurs at a different pace.
So first, from ages 0 to 12 months of emotional development, we're focused on the different sensory experiences of the child. So this is what they're experiencing through their senses, what they can touch, taste, see, hear, and smell. Based on your child's sensory impairment, it's important to leverage the other senses that they do have. If your child cannot see or has a hearing impairment, the other senses can compensate and offer other ways to interact. During later childhood and adolescence, we often see individuals develop heightened senses in other areas when their vision or hearing is impacted.
During the first 12 months of life, babies start by expressing emotions like crying, smiling, or giggling. They're intentional. They begin to recognize familiar sounds, voices, smells, people, and feel safe with trusted caregivers. Their interests focuses on sensory experiences like household sounds, music, movement, and touch. For example, you might observe babies mouthing objects or attempting to put items into their mouths. That is also intentional. This is called mouthing. It is an intentional behavior in a way for them to explore, learn, and soothe themselves.
So how do we encourage these social skills to develop? So in the first few years of life, the first year of life, babies can be supported with building their emotional awareness. What this looks like: responding with care. Comfort your baby when they cry or seem upset. This builds trust and helps them feel safe. Talking about feelings. Name their emotions. You're smiling, you must be happy, or you're crying because you're tired. Modeling can calm responses. Babies watch and copy you. Staying calm shows them how to handle emotions early on.
And we understand this might seem like very simple concepts, but they really do have a significant impact. So the next developmental period of 1 to 2 years, which involves the emotional development of noticing what others are doing. When your child has a sensory impairment, it is important to support the development of noticing others. This can be through having them touch more and involving the other senses when possible.
So how does it develop during this period? So you'll notice toddlers start to focus on what others are doing and their actions. They generally engage in solo play activities during this period, and toddlers are more adaptable to changes in people, objects, or routines with preparation and environmental support.
So at this age, we can encourage social skill development in a variety of ways. These include increasing social play opportunities where adults and others engage in pretend play, also imaginative play, that mimics social interactions or scenarios, role playing. Explain changes, which includes using language to explain something, changes in routine, naming what emotions others or the baby might be feeling, teaching turn taking in order to facilitate sharing and to develop essential social skills. We all know turn taking can be very hard for children this age, and opportunities for young children to engage in unstructured play without adult control. Conflict resolution when there are challenges with others, and shared storytelling.
From there, from the years of 3 to 4 of emotional development, there's an increased interest in interacting with others and noticing what they do. So next, they'll start to recognize, name their feelings. Preschoolers will become better at naming their own feelings, like saying, I'm mad or I'm happy. They start to recognize emotions in others, learning to say things like, she's sad because she dropped her toy. Emotional outbursts are still common at this age, but they're starting to learn simple ways to calm down, like taking deep breaths, using a calm down corner, or hugging a parent.
During the next developmental period, teaching emotional language is important. There are several ways that we can help support this development. These include naming emotions and helping them to identify how they are feeling or how others are feeling during any given moment, teaching coping strategies and helping recognize ways to calm themselves during emotional situations, like taking deep breaths, going to a calm down corner, and walking them through that experience by modeling, and reading emotion-based stories that generalize concepts and help them. Understand that everyone feels emotions, that emotions change throughout the day, and that you can also feel more than one thing at a time. We talk about that all the time in counseling. It's important for children to understand that it's okay to feel all the emotions and that not one emotion is better than the other. I think as adults, we tend to put a lot of emphasis in the positive emotions, but we also need to acknowledge that everybody feels happy, angry, sad, tired. That helps to normalize those feelings.
The final developmental period we'll review today is when you start to see an increased awareness of emotions of others and empathy, so from about the ages of 5 to 7. By this time, children start to understand that others can feel differently from them, which is the start of empathy. They practice skills like sharing, taking turns, and cooperating with friends. They can manage emotions better, like using words to solve problems instead of acting out.
So, as we build upon our social skills in early childhood, we want to start fostering empathy and problem-solving skills. We can do this by encouraging empathy by asking questions like, how do you think your friend felt when that happened? Or, that made me feel really sad when you hit me and it hurt. Providing role play scenarios like talking through how to handle tricky situations, like taking turns or apologizing after making a mistake. And so celebrate effort like praising attempts to manage feelings or solve problems, even if they aren't fully successful or if it wasn't perfect or right every time.
So what does social or emotional learning in early childhood look like? It looks like the developing of the capacity of a child from birth through 5 years age to form close and secure adult and peer relationships, experience, regulate, and express emotions in socially and culturally appropriate ways, and explore the environment and learn. And that's from the Center of Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning.
A lot of this information was pulled from the DESE website, the Department of Early Education Department of Early Ed and Education. What does DESE stand for again? Thank you. Total blank. Anyway, Google DESE, you'll find it. Okay, so social emotional learning, otherwise known as SEL instruction. It's a huge piece of what we do as school psychologists. Speech and language pathologists are often teaching this. It's happening across schools every single day in early childhood and throughout high school. So in general, there are 5 areas that comprise social emotional learning. These include self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. These are a big piece of what we do in counseling too, building upon how to teach these skills. It can be very tricky, but they're very important. So self-awareness, the ability to accurately recognize one's emotions and thoughts that influence other people or your own behavior. This includes accurately assessing your strengths, your limitations, and understanding or having a well-rounded sense of confidence and optimism. Self-management, the ability to regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. It's obviously super important for adults, but it's also super important to foster relationships with other people throughout the lifespan. This includes managing stress, controlling impulses, motivating yourself to be your best and to do better, and setting and working towards achieving personal and academic goals. Social awareness, the ability to take the perspective and empathize with others from diverse backgrounds and cultures. This is huge for some of our students. To understand social and ethical norms for behavior and to recognize family, school, and community supports. Relationship skills, the ability to establish and maintain healthy and rewarding relationships with diverse individuals and groups. This would include communicating clearly, listening actively, cooperating, resisting an inappropriate social pressure, negotiating conflict, and seeking and offering help when needed. And the last one is responsible decision making, the ability to make constructive and respectful choices.
So mental health in early childhood. So a child's emotional well-being is directly tied to the functioning of their caregivers. In infancy, interactions with adults help babies focus attention, build working memory, and manage reactions to stimulating experiences. Young children respond to and process emotional experiences and traumatic events in different ways. Our environment is critical to overall success. It's essential to incorporate SEL supports in the context of their families, homes, and community. Research regarding the effects of SEL programs has grown dramatically over the past 2 decades, providing strong scientific evidence in support of these practices. It's important to be reliable, responsive, and supportive for our children in order for them to build healthy and trustful relationships.
So this research has shown from hundreds of independent studies across multiple fields and sources that specific SEL instruction leads to beneficial outcomes related to social emotional skills, academic performance, mental wellness, healthy behaviors, school climate and safety, and lifetime outcomes.
So what are the strategies to support emotional intelligence? It's important to practice strategies to help children learn how to independently regulate their emotions. So this looks like recognizing how emotions feel in our body, doing self-check-ins, pausing and breathing, using curriculum or language from the zones of regulation, identifying triggers, learning to label our feelings using a range of emotions, not just happy, sad, and angry, expressing how we feel, and this can be done through verbal, nonverbal, tactile, or other modalities of communication, like symbols or augmentative and alternative communication. Also, it includes regulating ourselves during hard moments and exploring a range of strategies that support self and co-regulation.
So many of our students here at Perkins and many individuals within the blind or visually impaired community are total communicators or use AAC devices to help them communicate or to facilitate communication. And they may also experience these challenges with verbal or nonverbal communication. So exploring alternative methods of communication can help prevent isolation and also emotional distress that may occur if effective communication modalities are not available. Being able to express our thoughts, wants, and needs is a huge building block to feeling heard and understood and to develop emotional intelligence. Without this, individuals may experience emotional distress and behavioral challenges as a means to get their needs met. AAC can be tailored to an individual's needs and abilities. So, if you're having a student or a child who's displaying behavioral challenges, it's important to consider what are they trying to communicate? How can I help them facilitate what they need?
You're actually the next.
Okay. And this can include gestures, picture boards, symbols, sign language, high-tech devices, all that will help them express themselves. And listen, we get it. Adult life is hard, but it's really important to do self-check-ins as a school psychologist, as a parent, and that's what this next slide is about. So a self-check-in is when we stop and ask ourselves, how am I doing? How many of you do that throughout your day? Not enough. Me too. We completely acknowledge this is incredibly difficult to do when we are managing households and other adult responsibilities. Scheduling even 5 minutes throughout your day can offer intentional opportunities to reflect on what went well and what you want to do differently next time. It also offers an opportunity to check in with how we are doing mentally and emotionally, and we can model this to teach a child how to do this early on, which can help small emotions from turning into bigger meltdowns. The best way to do this is to model it out loud. So let's say, for example, you're putting a child to bed or for a nap, wherever you are. and you sit down and you take an opportunity to provide that language. You can offer language like high and low. We do that a lot in group counseling, or thorn in a bud. Children seem to like that language. Takes the pressure off a little bit, I think. And we can intentionally take this time to check in by putting our hand over our hearts, taking a deep breath, and just doing a quick body scan to check in with how we're holding emotions in our body. We can then model the language for identifying how we are feeling and what is arising in our bodies and minds when we take this time to check in. A lot will pop up.
So the zones of regulation are a great way to teach a child how emotions affect our bodies. There are 4 zones: red, yellow, green, and blue. That we use this all the time here at Perkins, although that's not an endorsement. This puts emotions into categories that are easier for children to understand and relate to. Vision or no vision, using colors is still an effective way to communicate feelings that many of our students here at Perkins use. So even students that have 0 sight and have never had sight in their life continue to use the zones of regulation color categorization, and they show that they're able to explain how they're feeling in a much more robust and understood way for us as practitioners.
It takes the pressure off a little bit, just picking a color instead of trying to pick how you're feeling, because you can pick 1,000 different words to say how you're feeling. I think our students really are drawn to that, just picking a color. So each zone represents how elevated our body is feeling. I tend to describe it and think of it as a thermometer of basically emotional or physical arousal levels. There's sensation in our bodies. So the blue zone is feeling low energy. You could be tired, you could be sick, allergy season, or if you're the type of person who tends to shut down when they're sad, that's the blue zone. The green zone's where we want to be. Our bodies are calm and regulated. We're ready to learn and receive information. This is, the target zone. The yellow zone indicates mild to moderate dysregulation, but this is not necessarily a negative emotion. It could be you're too silly, so you can't sit down and participate in work. You have too much energy. You need to get your energy out, or you're a little anxious, you're a little worried, you're a little sad, and it's showing up physically in your body. So it's important to take time to check in throughout our day and then to access strategies to get back to the green zone. And then the red zone, it's our highest level of the sensations in our bodies. When I or somebody else or our students get in the zone, it's the time to stop what we're doing, to limit our verbal, words to the student or the child. And it's important to recognize this is it's very challenging to come out of the red zone. You're kind of past that point of return, and you just need time to regulate. But the key would be to prevent someone from entering the red zone by using preventative strategies.
So one good way to prevent someone from going into the red zone is by identifying triggers. Triggers are something that cause a specific reaction. They can be good or bad. It's really important to know what a child's triggers are, as they can help you prevent big feelings from happening. And triggers, they can be anything. Sometimes they can be something someone says or does. They can be touch, changes in environment, changes in routine. The one that I find the most important is the change in routine, because for those with visual impairments or deafblindness, their routine is such an integral part of their day. And if that gets thrown off, they aren't as able to understand what to expect throughout their day. And that can really throw them off.
We use social stories a lot here, and a social story about change, it can be very helpful. So strategies in co-regulation, like social stories as a strategy, there's a variety of other strategies you can implement throughout your day to co-regulate. During yellow and red zone episodes, it's important to focus on calming your nervous system. When I'm dealing with one of my students who's having a really hard time, I always check in with myself. And when I provide training to new staff, I say, just take a deep breath, calm yourself, because that energy that you reflect is going to come up in that student. So if you're frazzled and you're having a hard time, that's not going to help the other person regulate. So always check in with yourself first. This can be done through deep breathing, like box breaths, body or hand squeezes, removing stimuli like sound or light, noise canceling headphones, lowering the shades, those are really big ones, a sensory room, a calm down corner. What strategies will work will depend on the person, and everyone calms down differently. And this co-regulation will happen naturally through time and through exposure. It's not going to happen right away. So, don't be surprised if you're working on this co-regulation practice with your child or student and it's not happening. Slowly over time, you will see these skills happen naturally. Just the other day, one of my students I was working with entered my room and just sat down and did a body scan and took a deep breath. That is a skill we have been working on for 3 years, but it was a huge milestone. It will be important for you to learn how to access these skills on your own before you attempt to model and teach these skills to your children or your students. And once you're comfortable with the language, you can model that. I feel like I'm in the yellow zone. I need to take a deep breath and to calm down. Let's do them together. And then you can normalize the language to describe how we're feeling and use the strategies when it's more, just provide it throughout your day. Normalize it throughout your day. Don't make it a big thing. And it's important to model that we can all experience all the emotions. And when you're feeling something, or if I'm feeling something and I'm working with someone, we might tend to want to keep that information from who we're talking to, other children, but it's important for them to understand that adults feel those things too. And if you're just having kind of a weird or bad day, it's okay to say, I think I'm in the yellow zone. I just need a minute.
All right, so our learning objectives from today, we learned about emotional intelligence and how it's a way of understanding and acknowledging feelings. We learned that emotional intelligence is linked to many positive outcomes. We learned the way that we interact with children during early childhood has a direct impact on how they develop their social emotional skills. Toxic stress deprives the brain of positive stimulation. Individuals with disabilities can experience amplified levels of toxic stress. Incidental learning can be impacted by visual impairments, blindness, or deafblindness. Labeling and explicit instruction is critical. Hierarchy of developmental emotional intelligence, social emotional learning in early childhood, and also strategies to support emotional intelligence and expression. That's a lot. So now we welcome any questions you might have for us, and we thank you for listening to our presentation.
Or if you have any comments or stories you want to share about how you've implemented this and what was successful, we'd love to hear that too. All right, thank you.
Hi, actually, we do have some questions. Sorry. So hang tight. So we have a question from the chat. Do you have a favorite social emotional learning curriculum that you could recommend?
So we were just talking about it, the zones. There's so many. We use the circles. There's the self-determination books. Maria Garcia is a genius. If you haven't heard of her, look her up. She wrote the zones. It's just such a practical tool. Like I said, it takes the pressure off. It's color based, but you can make it number based. There's so many resources available out there. We just find that the zones is very practical, and it's very easy to teach to other people to help them generalize the skills that we want to endorse and support throughout the day. Obviously, you can't always be available to instruct and to teach, and it's helpful for other people to understand that process too. Anyone want to share?
Great. I have another question.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have a response?
Nope.
Oh, this question is from Courtney. Courtney says, how do we explain emotions to kids who cannot see our faces?
That's a great question. So a good way to explain emotions is when you see a child experiencing the emotion themselves. I see you're smiling, you must feel happy, or just audibly is describing how you are interacting with the child or how your emotions are coming up. Oh, I'm breathing really heavy because I feel nervous. Something like that, where you're explicitly stating how one thing relates to the other.
I think another big piece for us to understand too is that our emotions are very physical within our body. The way that we're talking, the way that we're expressing ourselves, the tone, the level of our pitch. I'm squeezing my hands really tight because I'm really stressed and anxious, or I'm sweating because I'm really stressed and anxious, right? These are all physical things that come out when we're feeling emotions. When you're crying, you're sad, or you're screaming because you're in pain. So like Ira said, you're labeling those emotions in the moment when something happens.
Great. I have another question. My daughter is deafblind and developed a sensory disorder, mostly around the facial area. She is 7 years old and doesn't chew, which makes things difficult. Do you have any suggestions for what I can do? She connects well emotionally and expresses herself well.
So a good way to get around problems like that where you're very sensitive is through desensitization. So having just light touches to the face, having her try different foods, maybe really making the experience enjoyable and connecting it to a positive emotion, because it can be really challenging when there's so many negative emotions associated with such a central part of your personhood as well. So I would say gradual but intentional ways of bringing that sensitivity down over time and really taking it at the child's pace.
Great. I have one more. What are your thoughts regarding young children with disabilities participating in counseling?
Sure, of course. Absolutely. I mean, play therapy exists for a reason. So if someone's experiencing something, grief happens at any age. It doesn't just happen at a certain age. All of a sudden, we feel grief that happens throughout the lifespan. So yeah, of course. It would just be important to consider where the child is at and what modalities they need in order to communicate how they're feeling and to take feedback, and play therapy, tactile play therapy is a big one for our younger students here.
Awesome. I have one more. How can we include the thermometer in the kindergarten classroom?
Any way that you want. Morning meeting is a really good time. You could pick a student or just say, we have a tactile thermometer. Well, I kind of made a janky tactile thermometer for my own class, but we have people here who make accessible tactiles, and you could do it color-based, and you could make little, every color has a different texture to it. And so that's a good way for it to distinguish the different colors, and blues on the bottom, green, yellow, red. And during morning meeting, you could pick 2 or 3 students to check in, do the body scan, and then provide that language. And you could also model it yourself.
I just want to add one more thing about the tactile thermometer is involving the child in making their own tactile thermometer is a really great way to get more buy-in from them. Just having them associate different textures with different emotions and asking, what does this texture make you feel? Or what do you associate with this is a great way for them to be involved in the process as well.
All right. Thank you so much.